right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Lieutenant Claudia Murphy with the Bellingham Police Department. Thank you all for coming here and setting up so very quickly for our media briefing this afternoon. First up on the agenda, we have two speakers today. They will read prepared remarks, and after they're done with their prepared remarks, there'll be some questions that you all can ask. So first up is Mayor Seth Fleetwood. After that, Chief Flo Simon. And I will introduce Chief Mayor right now. The mayor right now, and he'll come right up.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. Is the mic check? Is it all good? I'll assume so. My name is Seth Fleetwood. I'm the mayor of Bellingham. With me today, as was indicated, is Police Chief Flo Simon. And I'm just going to give a few remarks and then invite Chief Simon to provide additional information. Then we'll take some time for questions. Hi, Keith. We took urgent emergency action this morning outside Bellingham City Hall to protect the safety of all people who have been living unsheltered on the lawn, members of the public who wish to conduct civic business, and employees of the city, the county, and businesses in and around our civic center. I authorized this action only after careful thought and consideration and consultation with key people in our organization, because it had occurred in advance of our stated deadline. We had posted a notice on Tuesday of this week indicating our intention that campers would leave by Friday. We initiated the cleanup early because we received credible information from multiple sources that caused us to accelerate our plans. Our civic center was becoming the target of agitators, far more intent on conflict than working towards any social good. More specifically, we received information regarding certain groups known to have a history of confrontation. They put out a call throughout the Northwest to gather in Bellingham on Friday. We acted today to reduce the risk of further injury, violence, and vandalism by those who are using the plight of our community's most vulnerable to further their own agenda. This concern regarding agitators was compounded by incidents at the encampment, which have greatly escalated in recent weeks, and the presence of a fortified wooden structure built outside the front doors containing interior spaces and unknown items. This was also the location from which a person threw a rock through the mayor's window several days ago. We have seen tensions rise and an increase in fights and violence, threats to people who walk by, mental health episodes, likely drug transactions, and other criminal behavior. This is in addition to serious public health risks caused by human and animal waste, refuse, lack of mask wearing, and social distancing necessary to prevent COVID-19. Let me give you some background. A tent encampment began on the lawn in front of City Hall in mid-November, later expanding to the north lawn of the Central Library. Many who are experiencing homelessness have been staying at the encampment, aided by volunteers working as a collective, accepting donations, providing food and other necessities as an occupied protest. A number of those people had made it very clear that they were engaged in a protest. They characterized it that way. Their object, bringing attention to the needs of those who are unsheltered. Encampment residents, along with their advocates, seek additional winter shelter from their local governments. We have acknowledged this need, and we are making solid and diligent progress towards that end. During the course of our negotiations, the number and nature of incidents at the site have greatly escalated, especially in recent weeks. Tensions flared further during a confrontation last Friday, when intentional agitators joined peaceful protesters as we tried to clear a safety zone around City Hall. The actions of these agitators, many of whom we believe came from outside of Bellingham, were a disservice to people who are experiencing homelessness and put them at increased risk. Incidents requiring police, fire, and emergency medical responses continued over the weekend, and thus our decision to entirely close City Hall and the library for this week. We proceeded with the required legal notice to inform Encampment residents that they must remove their belongings and leave by 4 p.m. Friday, January 29th. This was a reference to the notification we posted on Tuesday that I mentioned previously. This follows our intention stated repeatedly during the course of the past month that this temporary encampment, which does in fact violate our Bellingham Municipal Code, was never formally permitted by the City of Bellingham, that it needed to come to an end in January. Today, police worked to secure the scene, provide a safe setting for camp residents to move, and a safe working environment for public work crews to assist campers with their cleanup efforts. Public Works crews assisted campers in gathering their belongings, offering transportation and connections to find safe shelter and other services. While many residing at the encampment are leaving the area willingly and peacefully, several protesters have assaulted officers who are maintaining a safety line. So that's some background. At this time, I'd like to invite Bellingham Police Chief Flo Simon to come up and offer some remarks. Thank you, Flo.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon. I'm Chief Flo Simon from the Bellingham Police Department. We appreciate you guys coming here today, and we thank you for your patience. The encampment at City Hall, like the mayor said, began on November 11th, 2020 with 5 tents, 4 of which were empty. Over the course of the past 2.5 months, it has grown to what you saw today, which was approximately 100 tents. Probably 50% of those were unoccupied. During the same time period, Bellingham officers have had to respond to over 60 calls, many of which were safety, hazard, and crime-related. These reports included several felony assaults with suspects from the encampment using weapons like hatchets, baseball bats, broken sticks, and pieces of wood against each other and members of the public. There also have been numerous fights, misdemeanor assaults, domestic violence incidents, and other dangerous behavior. On December 5th, 2020, a tent was set on fire, which caused propane tanks to explode, putting the public library, employees, citizens, and other people in tents in considerable danger. This prompted the city to enact a 25-foot barrier around the library, which was established and adhered to. As time passed, more fire pits were established throughout the lawn of City Hall, as were more tents and structures built from pallets and plywood. These were in very close proximity to City Hall building itself. A 25-foot safety zone was needed to ensure the safety of the building and the employees inside, much like the library. This was posted on Friday, January 22nd, and immediately met with resistance and a call for protest and action to stop the enactment of the safety zone. You're all aware of the events of last Friday. We had streets blocked, malicious mischief, and a culmination, which culminated with several people prying open the doors to City Hall and entering the building. Though all who entered left peacefully, the show of force was clear. Given the totality of the events over the past couple of months, city leadership made the decision to post notices on Tuesday, alerting the entire camp that it needed to end and be cleaned out and moved out. During the process of posting notices, Bellingham Public Works employees were harassed, chased, and a person from the encampment tried to jump into their vehicle, presumably to steal it and keep them from posting signs and doing their job. That same person also threw rocks at the windows of City Hall, breaking several windows. Information provided to and gathered by Bellingham Police about calls for large numbers of protesters from Bellingham and outside the area to come to City Hall and interfere and stop any potential cleanup of the encampment for tomorrow led us to realize it would be difficult to maintain the safety of our employees, residents, and those in the tents. A plan was recommended to the mayor to end the camp prior to Friday. Given the credible information of large number of protesters being called for to respond and interfere with a peaceful resolution. This cleanup of the encampment was a City of Bellingham endeavor, and there were several departments working in concert to accomplish this as safely as possible. As the mayor has said, and I agree, circumstances at City Hall and the library had become entirely untenable, and if there was to be a confrontation, we were not to be the aggressors. The Bellingham Police Department's responsibility today was to establish a safety and maintain a safety zone for the Public Works employees, and to help, so the Public Works employees could help the campers clean out City Hall and also the library lawn. The folks that were camping at City Hall and the library left peacefully and cleaned up their spots peacefully. As of this afternoon, 4 people have been arrested for various crimes, to include assaulting officers and disorderly conduct. Although 3 officers were assaulted, none were injured. At this time, we will entertain several questions. I'm sure you have many. If you could state where who you're affiliated with in your name, that would be appreciated.
Tessa from KGMI. I'm hearing that a number of people have moved to the Jerry Ball Fields. Does the city have a plan to deal with displaced campers?
So we've heard that some of the campers have moved to a camp that was already set up there at Frank Jerry Fields, and we will be making plans to work with those folks that have moved over there. So far, they've moved a lot of property there. A lot of the campers that were on the lawn at the library have been moved to base camp as well. So that will be the next plan that we make.
Hi, Jonathan Joe with Como News. Could you be very specific about who these quote-unquote outside agitators are? Could you describe who these people are and more about the intel that you got about this?
Sure, I'm not going to divulge all the intel I have. That would be tipping my hand a little too much. But some of the groups that came up here claimed to be from Antifa, and they were calling for groups all the way from Portland to come to Bellingham and disrupt the cleanup that was to occur yesterday. Some of the groups are just various extremist groups that wanted to be part of this protest. Some of these folks we've seen at other protests for Black Lives Matter or the protests down in Tacoma. So we were expecting a crowd to gather tomorrow.
Thank you. It's Dee Dee here with Cairo 7.
Yes, Dee Dee.
Just wondering, so what about the protesters today? Do you know if any outside groups made their way up here today?
As far as I know, there were several from down south that made their way up here. Yes. I don't know how many, but there were some.
And do they from Antifa?
I don't know. They were never identified, although they were wearing the same gear that Antifa wears when they come to protest.
Eric Wilkinson from King 5. What are you expecting for tomorrow, Chief? More of the same?
I'm not sure what to expect for tomorrow. I expect there may be a crowd that shows up and does a protest, and we'll deal with that if that occurs. As far as tonight, the protesters have left the City Hall lawn, and so we will monitor the situation and act accordingly.
Was anybody that was considered part of the BLP Mutual Aid considered agitators as well?
That I don't know. I don't have that information.
Also, is the Whatcom County Courthouse closed right now?
Yes,
And how long will the City Hall, Library, and Courthouse be closed for?
they'll be closed for the remainder of this week, so tomorrow they'll be closed and then we'll reassess.
Key Rally with Bellingham Herald. Can you tell me how many, chief and mayor, how many in law enforcement you had out there today, and from what organizations, including the National Guard? And there were questions about whether there were snipers up on top of the courthouse, perhaps City Hall.
So I'll answer the latter first. We did have Overwatch watching the situation, make sure our officers were safe and the campers were safe. As far as how many officers, Bellingham deployed between 40 and 50 officers. We also had the assistance of the Sheriff's Office and the Washington State Patrol. The Sheriff's Office called the Border Patrol to assist them with their courthouse. And we did not, National Guard was not here.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
As far as the folks that are being moved to Civic Field, is that the same field as the football field? And was it part of the city's plan, or was that volunteers moving them, or was it protesters moving?
The protesters did no moving. That was the campers themselves moving there. There was an established camp that's been there for a while, and they moved their belongings there, and that was not part of our plan. That is not part of our plan to have them there.
So it was not Public Works employees then helping them move up there?
No, Public Works employees just helped them clean up their sites on the city lawn and the library and get rid of their refuse if they had any.
Where have the campers gone? I mean, we've talked about this encampment that's sprung up on the parking lot at Jerry Field, but where else have they gone? Have they received help elsewhere?
Yes, a lot of them have gone to base camp. Some have gone to the overflow shelter, and then others have gone up to the Frank Jerry Field area.
In the absence of Warren Sir on Bellingham Herald, in the absence of protesters today and a large presence of protesters, how would it have gone differently on your end?
In the absence of protesters?
Yeah, what do you think officers would have been doing if protesters weren't there?
Oh my gosh, if protesters weren't there, there would be maybe 3 or 4 officers with the Public Works crew just being their safety zone for anything that came up.
And like say someone wanted to stay in their tent, but there was no protester there, but someone living in a tent wanted to stay. What do you think the role of police would have been?
The role of police in that instance is to get a search warrant for that tent and then allow Public Works to take care of it
Thank you.
and store that person's property if they wanted us to.
Appreciate that. Thank
Yeah, you're welcome.
Chief, do you have an estimate, or Mayor, do you have an estimate yet on how much the law enforcement presence today will cost?
I don't have an estimate for you, but I can tell you that all the officers that were there today were on their day off.
Do you think they'll still be paid though, or they?
Yes, they still will be paid, but we also needed folks to take patrol calls. So if that's all the questions you have, I'll be turning it back over to Lieutenant Murphy.
I wanted to mention also, we have our Public Works Director, Eric Johnston, here today as well. His crew is in large part responsible for helping some of our campers gather their stuff and is going to help clean up the lawn. If there are any specific questions that anybody might have for Eric, let me know. Anybody have any questions for him? Okay, with that said, if no one has any more questions, please, if you need anything else or you need a clarification, most of you have my contact information. I'll give it to you. It's Claudia Murphy, PIO, PIO, Bellingham Police Department. My cell phone number is 360-815-2701. My email is cmurphy@cob.org. If you have questions for the mayor, please contact Janice Keller at the Communications Director for the City of Bellingham, and her email is jkeller@cob.org, and the city's phone number is 360-778-8100. Any other questions, comments? We thank you so much for coming at such short notice, getting set up, and that'll be the end of the press briefing for today. Thank you so much.